3 years after our wedding, my pilot husband cancelled our marriage registration 18 times. The first time, his female trainee had a test flight. I waited at the civil affairs office for an entire day. The second time, he got a call from his female trainee on the way and abruptly turned back, leaving me on the roadside. After that, whenever we made plans to register our marriage, his female trainee would have all sorts of problems. Later, I decided to leave him, but when I boarded the plane to Paris, he chased after me to Paris like a madman. Married for 3 years, Eames still hasn't officially tied the knot with me. Today marks his 1000th successful flight milestone, and it's also the 17th time he's promised to go register our marriage. But at the celebration banquet, while I was being pressured to drink by his direct superior, he was busy feeding his female pilot apprentice and exchanging drinks with her. I endured a high fever and drank to the point of near fainting, yet he didn't even glance my way once. Many colleagues from the company sighed and clicked their tongues, their eyes filled with pity as they looked at me. Anyone with eyes could see that I was forcing myself to drink despite feeling unwell, and it was clear who I was doing it for. However, after the celebration ended, Eames, who was supposed to go to the courthouse with me to register our marriage, stood me up yet again. He drove the car to the restaurant entrance and held out one arm to stop me from getting in. Mandy drank too much on my behalf earlier. I need to take her home. You should catch a cab back. We probably won't make it to register this afternoon. Let's do it another day. After saying this, he didn't even bother to wait for my reaction. He hurriedly got out of the car and carried his female apprentice into the passenger seat. 8 years of dating, 3 years of marriage, and this is the 17th time Eames has postponed our marriage registration because of Mandy. I end my typical days. I'd probably have broken down in tears by now, shouting and demanding to know who truly was his wife and who had just been shielding him from alcohol. But this time, I just smiled faintly and said, "Alright, be careful on the road." Eames was taken aback, surprised by my calm demeanor today, but after a moment, he coldly replied, "I'll buy you a gift to make up for it when I come back tonight." With that, he drove off, making sure to close the car window for his female apprentice before leaving, worried the wind might affect her in her drunken state. In the past, he never allowed the smell of alcohol to linger in his car. Every time I drank for him, he'd open the convertible top even in winter, let alone simply closing a window. Looking back now, I realize it was just because I was the one in the car. The midday sun in Los Angeles was scorching, making everyone sweat profusely, but my heart felt strangely cold. I took a deep breath and put the marriage certificate back in my bag. I knew it was time to let go of these 8 years of emotions as well. In the afternoon, I went straight back to the company and submitted my resignation letter to my supervisor. "Does Eames know about your resignation?" My supervisor was quite surprised by my decision to leave, considering I had been the airline's top-performing flight attendant for 7 consecutive years. Staying with the company would undoubtedly lead to a promising future. I gave a bitter smile. "I'll tell him tonight, but I doubt he'll care much." You two have been flying new routes together these past few years, winning the company's top awards. Even the CEO personally attended your wedding 3 years ago. Everyone was so envious, but now, the supervisor sighed deeply, full of regret. Indeed, those were beautiful memories, but memories are just memories, and we can never go back. After submitting my resignation, I returned home around 10 p.m. The house was eerily quiet and empty. Just then, a social media post from Mandy popped up on my phone. She had specifically tagged me. "Thanks to my mentor for staying by my side all afternoon. As a token of appreciation, I'm taking you to see Jay's concert tomorrow. Can't wait." I knew that Eames, who had said he'd be coming home at noon, wouldn't be returning tonight. This situation had occurred far too many times in the 3 years since our marriage. I opened my email after quickly preparing a bowl of noodles. Looking at the invitations from over a dozen airlines from different countries, my cursor landed directly on the one from Air France. Without much thought, I clicked to accept the invitation and booked a flight to Paris for 2 days later. 5 years ago, Eames encountered the biggest accident of his career while flying to Paris. Since then, the word Paris had become taboo for him. Not only did he stop flying there, but I hadn't flown there even once either. "Eames, you've gone to Paris. We probably won't ever see each other again in this lifetime, will we?" The next morning, I woke up and started packing my bags. Halfway through my packing, Eames returned home wearing a pink shirt. As he entered, a strong scent of rose perfume wafted in with him. I was momentarily stunned by the overpowering fragrance. In the past, he used to despise the smell of perfume. Because of this, during all the years we'd been together, I never wore perfume and even threw away my treasured collection of fragrances. Now it seems he doesn't hate perfume, he just didn't like me wearing it. As he came in and saw me packing, he paused briefly. "Mandy took too long to sober up last night, so I got a hotel room by myself and didn't come back." I glanced up at him, somewhat surprised. This was the first time in our 3 years of marriage that he had voluntarily offered an explanation. I nodded without saying a word. He slowly walked up to me and asked, looking down, "Are you packing for a work trip?" I nodded again, something like that. After hearing my response, he seemed to breathe a sigh of relief for some reason before continuing, "I have some business to attend to today. I just came back to grab something, and then I'm leaving. I won't be here for lunch." "Okay." I didn't look up, just continued packing my bags. I had planned to tell him over lunch that I'd already resigned, officially putting a period to our 8-year relationship. Now, it seems, I won't even have that chance. After saying this, Eames grabbed a red bag, took the clothes hanging by the door, and hurriedly left. Bomb. A photo frame that had hung on the doorframe for 8 years suddenly fell to the ground after he left. Glass shards scattered everywhere. I looked over. It was a photo of Eames and me at our first concert together. In the picture, we had our hands clasped together, beaming with joy. That day, he promised me that no matter how busy he got, he would take me to a concert every year from then on. But ever since Mandy became his apprentice, he'd forgotten all about it. In the empty room, the clock ticked away. I remained silent for a long while before finally cleaning up the glass shards. Then, I threw that photo full of happiness, along with my lingering reluctance, into the trash can. As the evening arrived, I lay exhausted on my bed after tidying everything up. Just then, I received a call from my best friend. What's the deal with Eames? This is way out of line. Have you seen his social media? He's flaunting his relationship with that vixen Mandy. You two aren't even divorced yet. How could he do this? Listening to my friend's rant, I absent-mindedly opened my phone. At the top was Mandy's latest post. In the photo, Mandy wore a Van Cleef Arpels 4-leaf clover necklace and held a red bag Eames had retrieved from home at noon. Only then did I realize that when he went home at lunchtime, it was to get Mandy a gift for the concert. Beneath the picture was a caption, 3 years of knowing you. I'm so lucky to have you, brother Eames. Happy 3rd anniversary. At that moment, it dawned on me. 3rd anniversary? Right. Today was also supposed to be my and Eames' 3rd wedding anniversary, wasn't it? But we had never actually celebrated our wedding anniversary, to the point where I had completely forgotten about it myself. I let out a long sigh before replying to my friend. He doesn't need a divorce, because we never actually got our marriage license. What? You've been married for 3 years and Eames still hasn't gotten a marriage license with you? The phone nearly deafened me with my best friend's shocked exclamation on the other end. Yeah, it had been 3 years since the wedding, and he had unilaterally cancelled our marriage registration a whopping 17 times. At 11 p.m., Eames unusually returned home. As he stepped inside and took off his coat, he was about to hang it behind the door when he suddenly froze in place, noticing the bare spot where our photo together used to hang. What happened to our photo behind the door? He hadn't even put down his coat when he walked into the bedroom, asking me with a hint of panic in his voice. It fell and broke. Hearing this, he glanced at the shattered glass in the trash can by the door. His expression relaxed as he placed his coat aside and pulled out a bag containing an LV purse. I didn't have time to give you the gift I promised yesterday. Today happens to be our 3rd wedding anniversary, so here's this purse for you. Happy anniversary. He placed the purse on the bed, and for a moment, I wondered if I had misheard something. 3 years of marriage, and he actually remembered our wedding anniversary? But seeing the receipt showing a purchase just half an hour ago, I suddenly understood. It must have been Mandy's 3rd anniversary content that reminded him, prompting him to come home and buy it on the way. What he didn't know was that I already had 2 of the same style purses in my closet. I didn't say a word, just stared at him directly. Oh, by the way, it's almost the end of the year. For this year's airline awards, could you possibly step aside? Mandy's been in the industry for 3 years, and her biggest dream is to win a top airline award just like you. You've won several years in a row now. Could you let her have it this year? As he spoke, his expression was somewhat hesitant. I laughed bitterly to myself. So even this casual gift had already been secretly price tagged. Sure, I nodded calmly. Not just this year, but next year, the year after, and all future airline awards. I won't be competing with her anymore, because after tonight, I'll be leaving tomorrow. You agreed? My prompt response seemed to catch him off guard. Eames glanced at me several times, from the corner of his eye. Then he couldn't help but speak up again. Mandy is my protege, and you're her mentor's wife. This is how it should be. Oh, and I'm not flying tomorrow. Let's go to the registry office in the morning and get our marriage certificate. I remained silent. He seemed to suddenly remember that I had been packing today. After a pause, he asked gently, I almost forgot. Aren't you returning to flying tomorrow? What time is your flight? 3 in the afternoon. I looked at him, intending to use this last opportunity tonight to tell him about my plans to leave. But before I could continue, his phone rang again. It was Mandy calling. From the other end of the line came a coquettish voice. Mandy had started her period and didn't have any pads. She was calling Eames for help. After hanging up, Eames looked at me somewhat guiltily. Mandy's having a bit of an issue. She's just a young girl and doesn't know how to handle it. I might need to go over there. As he said this, his tone was uncharacteristically seeking approval. I swallowed the words that had been on the tip of my tongue, then forced a smile and nodded. It's fine, go ahead. My response visibly relieved him. He immediately got up, and before leaving, he said once more, if you come by 3 p.m., that'll be fine. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., we'll go get our marriage license. Don't worry, this time I'll make it no matter what happens. I couldn't help but smile bitterly. He ultimately didn't give me the chance to break up with him face to face. The next morning, I packed my bags and, instead of going to the registry office, headed straight to the airport. By noon, I still hadn't received a call from Eames asking why I hadn't shown up at the registry office. By the time I was about to board the plane in the afternoon, I finally received a message from Eames. I'm sorry, Mandy wasn't feeling well today. I just took her to the hospital, so we missed getting our marriage license. As soon as you get back from this trip, I'll go with you to the courthouse first thing. Looking at this message, I felt nothing inside. Sure enough, for the 18th time, he didn't show up to get our marriage license. Don't bother, Eames. I've quit my job, and I'm about to fly to Paris. After today, we won't see each other again. I sent him one last message, preparing to turn off my phone, but in the next second, the chat window that had been silent for so long started vibrating frantically.